Hello, football family. Welcome into Huddle It Up Films. Very special show tonight. Very special time of year for me. You guys know the big board was released or may have seen it on Monday. So all the hard work is done. Most of the hard work is done. Now I can go back, get suggestions from everybody. Hey, have you seen this guy? Have you seen that guy? Maybe you should move this guy up, that kind of thing. So a lot of my work is done. I was on with Coach DC on his channel. It aired Monday, and he asked me what my favorite time of draft season was, and it's now. It's now because now we get to talk about the prospects. The big board's released. All the hard work is done, and Coach DC is here tonight because I'm working with him on something special this year. I've never collaborated before with the draft. I'm very protective over it. Very protective over my work. It's my baby. But Coach DC approached me about doing some write-ups for his website, and man, does it look phenomenal. So I had to have Coach DC on with Dev and I tonight, man. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Congrats
Absolutely.
on the website. Looks great. I know, you're still working on it though.
Still a work in progress. Thanks for having me and Dev on. The draft is something I think I tried to get into seriously like 3 years ago. And I said to someone in the Discord yesterday, I was like, Jason probably has what I would think is the most comprehensive team specific look at the draft, because you're looking at certain players and saying, I think I even saw you reply to someone on Twitter, like, I faded or moved this guy down a little bit because he's not, someone that we would look at from a positional standpoint. So that aspect of it is great for Ravens fans. And, we're already blessed as Ravens fans with so many different voices and content creators anyway. So I'm just glad to be one of them. And the website was really just a collection of, I think a whole bunch of, you use the phrase like-minded people who, when I asked them, they said yes. So it's just been a lot of fun, and we hope that it's something people enjoy.
So we're going to take a look at that website in a little bit. We have a couple of Ravens topics. Then we'll get into the big board, the draft, and all that stuff. Debonair, Dev Panchois, excited to have Coach on tonight, aren't we?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. When you told me Coach was coming on, I started to get pumped. And then Coach, I had to give you some love for the Jalen Hawkins video you dropped a week ago. I'm catching up, and mainly catching up on the new signings. So I just wanted to give you a lot of love for that
analysis. He's a good player, right?
He's your type of player. I think Coach is probably, and it came across too how much you were enjoying breaking down his tape. But the interesting thing about him, I did not at all pay attention to him specifically in that Ravens game, and the fact that you pulled out those plays. I mean, the Henry play didn't even occur to me that he
was
made
that CD3 or was that him? I mean, I still watch that play, and I'm like, who forced that fumble? It looks like Hawkins to me, but
yeah. And then I know what was it, Chison also involved in that play, right? Like maybe you got the fumble recovery, but
the forced fumble. I still watch it, and I'm like, who the hell forced it?
Yes, I couldn't make it out all the way either, but and not to spend too much time on that, but just, I don't know, Jason, if you saw it, but like Hawkins from depth, Hawkins from little. I know you showed that one play from slot, everywhere, box. I mean, and then out wide, on the perimeter. Just he's really good. I think between him, Starks, Hamilton, it's gonna be in to see Minter figure that out and put them in different spots. It's going to be hell for quarterbacks. Let's just say that.
Coach, I wanted to ask you about this. Why you brought up Hawkins. Obviously, what I have here, and granted it's a little jumbled, but this is the nickel defense. You got Kyle Hamilton up to the line of scrimmage, and you got Jalen Hawkins back there with Starks taking that Alohi Gilman role over. I actually switched it, though, Coach. I think Hawkins is going to be lined up on that right side of the defense over the X receiver, kind of be. Now, they're going to switch roles, of course. They're not going to stay in one spot all game. Both are too versatile. But I think they're really going to take advantage of Malachi Starks' versatility as well. And I'm curious to see what your opinion is here. Like, do you think Starks is going to stay in the same spot as last year, where I have Hawkins on this list? Malachi Starks was the right safety most of the year. Or do you think, like me, that they'll move him closer to the box, match up on some tight ends, and let Hawkins roam the back end when they go to like single high man and things like that?
Yeah, you guys let me know, but I would say that of the two, Starks or Hawkins, we're omitting Hamilton here. because he can do anything, right, at any time. Of the two, if I wanted someone to cover a slot receiver or a tight end, I think I'd want it to be Starks. And that's not to say that Hawkins can't cover. Like I don't talk like that, and I just don't really want to listen to people who do talk like that. But I think Hawkins is very balanced and good at a lot of things. I would say relative to the 3 or 4 strengths that he has, awareness, agility. He's a hostile dude. Relative to all the strengths that he has, I would say that man-to-man coverage is just not the thing that I see him majoring in on the film. And so I think the difference between the two for me would be I would expect to see Starks in coverage a little more on slot receivers or tight ends to trips, with Hawkins being more in the middle of the field when we do get to that single high. Is that pretty much what you were asking?
That's what I'm asking, and I came to the same conclusion. It's just Malachi Starks' man coverage to me stood out as a strength of his. I think it translated better than could have even thought. And, so I think that Starks is kind of like more freed up with Jalen Hawkins. And when you go to heavier defense, obviously Hamilton's staying on the field. And I'm guessing Hawkins would come off the field, but I mean, you have a lot of options. Since Starks is a first-round pick, you have a lot of options there, which I love. It frees us up for the draft. So got a couple of Ravens topics, and it looks like Heather is in the green. Hello, Head VP. Hello to everybody joining us. Appreciate y'all. Let's skip the shout-outs tonight for a minute because we got so much action. Jason, I would love to see a reunion with Clowney. Debonair Dev, I am kind of big on Jadeveon Clowney. If you want a, Max Crosby type style player, it's Jadeveon Clowney. And he's not that rush end like Hendrickson, like Mike Green. He is a disruptor, a force against the run. I would kind of like that move, to be honest, even though the draft is deep at that position.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It was, I think you were giving me a hard time offline when I put out that they can cover up some of the Hendrickson gaps, right? That they now are faced with not having Crosby and interacting with Mina Kimes on that, and she pulled out the whole joke about, hey, I'm going to Photoshop Clowney in for you guys, and just taking a picture from a couple years ago. But I think he is perfect. And the funny thing is, with Coach Weaver back, I think they really got along well, right? And Clowney, there's I think it was Ravens Wired when they featured Clowney, and he was joking around with Weaver on the sideline, if I'm not mistaken. So I think that is also a natural connection. I know he liked his time here, and some of in particular some those coaches on that staff. So you got one back. But I think, and what I like about Clowney is he can be part of a rotation. You don't have to necessarily play him a certain amount of snaps. In fact, he probably would prefer to be on a snap count. And hopefully he can just kind of fit in seamlessly. And he's still playing really high. Coach, what do you think? I think he played at a pretty high level in Dallas. Like he didn't lose too much, but you might have seen more.
They had a lot of guys there. They had, him, the rookie, Ezraku, James Houston IV, who's been a favorite of mine since 2022. They had another player, I forget who it was, that played out there. I think it was a little bit older guy that maybe played for Washington for a year. I can't remember his name. But so they had a rotation there, and Clowney, to my memory,
Dante
Fowler, yeah. Clowney didn't look like, to me, he was playing 50, 55 snaps a game, and I love his effort. I love the way he plays. I love, all of his hand strikes and stuff. They're not always like technical. Sometimes he's a little upright as far as pad level, but he gets the job done. And I think all of us as Ravens fans, we look back on that post 2023 time period, and there's so many blows there, right? Losing McDonald, Clowney not coming back was tough, but he's a Carolina guy, and so for him to go down there to Charlotte, even though that's not the city that he's from, it's the Carolinas. I would love to see him back if it was in a role that was obviously understood. Hey, you're looking at 28, 30 snaps a game in pass rush situations, but I think that's a little contingent upon who we draft. I think if we get someone at 45 like a Malachi Lawrence, who I don't expect to be there at 45, but a Dennis Sutton, someone who comes into camp and looks great, I do wonder if we even need a guy like Clowney, even though personally I like his game and I would like to see him return as a fan, if that makes sense.
So yeah, there you go, Heather. Member for 7 months, and Heather actually has a follow up. Go ahead and pull that up as well. It's $10 super chat from the head VP. Thank you so much, Heather. Appreciate that. I would love to know how you are feeling about the offensive line. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a point of interest, and I you know what, Heather, maybe point of interest isn't even the word. Like point of emphasis, I would say is probably what you're talking about. Like if we would focus on the offensive line, spend a little bit more, and yeah, I mean, to me, it's been a bugaboo of mine, and I just wonder if I'm just scarred from the last 2 years, really, of offensive line play. That
We are.
I want the best. Yeah, I want the best. Like I'm looking at the depth chart. I'll pull it up again, but at this point, we have not really addressed the center position. We have Corey Bullock. I'm listening as the starter just because I'm not sure who the starter is. Pinter was signed for backup money. Suggests that he's a backup. He's been a backup. John Simpson, okay, have no problem with that. Emory Jones, I like, but this is a point for me, guys. To Heather's point, where I really want to overdo it on this offensive line, and that's kind of not been the approach of the Ravens so far. I'm a little bit worried, guys. Maybe it's just being scarred from the past, but I'm not real happy with where the offensive line is. It's an incomplete to me right now.
Yeah, I guess from my point of view, they have to be going all in on the draft, and that can be a scary proposition as well, right? Even as much as we like Vega, and I know we're going to talk about him, and I love the centers in this class, just on the surface. And Jason, I know you've done a lot of the under the hood work on it. I do feel like they would be making a mistake not coming out of this with at least one of them. So that's one. But even then, you still need a veteran somewhere in there, either at center or guard. And there's still some players out there. So for me, I'm cautiously optimistic. Also, between Ledford being the coach. I know for you, Coach DC, because we talked about it during the bye week. Like the coaching staff, especially with Warhop and Ledford, you're like talking about total opposite tent poles. Like, so I know that doesn't also mean you give Ledford nothing to work with. I get it. He needs talent to work with, but I do think his ability to get more out of the group, maybe in particular for like Emory Jones, right? Like I could see Emory Jones really benefiting. Maybe that's what they're thinking, but I do think they're going to attack it through the draft. That's what I'm seeing right now. And some of the guys that are out there, there's legitimate question marks with some of whoever's left. Like Cushenberry's a guy I like at center. That's been his name's been floated out there, but he's also coming off of not a good season, and he had an Achilles injury, I think 2 years removed. So, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I think the draft is what they're gunning for at this point.
So more like, Coach, this is what makes me most uncomfortable about the team is what Heather's talking about here. Like I'm confident we're going to add another weapon or two to this team, but we need to just get this O-line right. The defense is going to be good. Lamar is going to be great. Henry's going to be great. Just give them some room to operate. And right now, we haven't overdone it, to say the least. Like we're relying on this draft to fill out this room as of today.
Yeah, I think all of us as Ravens fans, or most, there's still some delusional people out there who thought that we were good enough last year or even in 2024 on the interior when we clearly were not. It's been mixed messages, I think. And so we would have liked us, the front office, to overcompensate, go overboard, sign a guard, veteran center, and still possibly even take 2 guys in the draft, right? We would like to see some real depth built. And that's just human reactions that we all have. We're not professionals, at this like they are. I think the mixed messages is this. We're going to run a zone stretch, outside zone type scheme. And I think Emory Jones, fits there, right? He's athletic. He can move. Signing John Simpson, for me, I would say C+. And what I mean by that is I have yet on film to see him scoop someone on the backside. So he plays left guard and the run plays going to, his right, the offense is right. And I've yet to see him take someone over who is lined up to his inside. And that's one of the things you got to be able to do. Of course, Tyler Linderbaum signed for what, $27 million a year. He was taking over people that were B gaps. That's like 2 gaps away from him.
Right.
And John Simpson can't even get to a guy that's 1 gap. Now, part of it was the center that was playing for the Jets, I think, was low awareness and low quality. So that could change. I think Simpson looked better on run plays to his side versus run plays away from him. He seemed to have better steps. He looked like the same guy to me on film that I saw in 2023. And to be perfectly honest with you, I was glad to see him leave. I'm glad he got paid. Glad he made money. Awesome. But from a Ravens standpoint, I didn't think that he fit the bill from a talent perspective. Do we have a better coach? I think so. And I know George Warhop is a legend as an offensive line coach. He put the product out there, allowing guys to use not just wide hands, but other techniques that didn't work, and we paid the price for it. And so, let's put it this way. I'm glad he's in Cleveland. And we're going to get to face him twice a year.
Uncle Todd.
I think there's mixed messages here. There's reason for optimism. 5 centers in this draft, maybe 6, maybe 7, with a couple of the guys who were talking about position changes, right? That look
Right.
quality. I'm not saying 7 starters, but quality. Guard depth is very good, but we want to get at some of these other positions, right? We want to get at the edge position, the tight end group. I think we'd like to go at wide receiver. And bottom line, offensive line can't be addressed. In the 5th round, I mean, maybe some of those late 4th round picks, I guess, but we're in a little bit of a bind maybe with those first 3 picks, but we've got to address it. Sure would be great to get a center handled in free agency, like Dev said, from a veteran standpoint before the draft.
That's what I was hoping. And the signing of Brian Pinter, the signing of John Simpson, to me, that's like, okay, that's okay. That's like Pinter's okay for a backup. Simpson's okay for a plan for me to where, okay, maybe he starts the first 8 games before, this stud rookie takes over or something of that nature. But, I was hoping that we've seen EDC overdo it. When we miss on one spot, we get burned with lack of corner depth. Next year, we overdo it with corners. We haven't seen that from the offensive line group.
How much do you guys think Ledford's weighing in on the state of affairs? DaCosta did mention, I think he mentioned specifically that he watched tape on Simpson, Ledford did, and liked him. Now, that's probably what it is like, here's the free agents we're thinking about, and what do you think? I don't think it was like Ledford coming to him and saying, let's go after John Simpson. So there's a little bit of that, to your point, Coach, like where how much information is getting shared amongst the coaching staff. I'm sure a ton.
Yeah.
And who do they like and who do they not like? So it's just tough to say at this point.
It's funny because when we acquired Simpson, I had a scout that I trust very much. His name's Sanjeet. He's the football scout, covers the Raiders, but does other teams now. And he said, despite John Simpson's build, he had real problems in McDaniel's scheme, and he was good in John Gruden's West Coast offense. So he was better in outside zone, stretch zone with the Raiders than he was in a power scheme, which I found interesting because John Simpson's obviously this big butt kicking dude. Samuel Moore, football family, Jason, Dev, Coach, let's go Ravens. MPV's finest, North Point Village, Samuel Moore. Love you, Sam. Thanks for checking in so much. And also, it looks like we have a gifted membership from Ashley. Thank you so much. If you got the gifted membership from her, please thank her. Best Twitter account out there is Ashley. I always say that, Ashley, because I love the inspirational stuff that you pick. Who would be your pick at 14 if you had a choice? From Heather, I'm leaning toward Vega. We'll keep it short on this. I want to get that guard early if he's there. If not, we're going to have some decisions to make because it's not a real strong top of the draft. So I think if you take the best guard in the draft, number 1, 14 overall, it's a good pick in 2026, not necessarily in a more stacked draft like 2022. What say you guys? You got a short opinion on this? 14? You looking at anybody?
I'm going to throw it your way, Coach, because I'm curious where you're going or leaning.
I think one of you guys mentioned this earlier that sometimes we as the Ravens front office can be reactionary. So I think my perspective here might be a little bit reactionary as well. I think to last year when Mike Green fell to the end of round 2, I do believe we were going O-line there, but we saw the Green opportunity who shouldn't have been there, and we took it, right? And so I get it that Malachi Stark's a really good football player, and people aren't going to like me saying this. I wonder if, in hindsight, we shouldn't have addressed guard last year with our first-round pick, and then we wouldn't be in this position. Now, that was a previous administration or a previous staff, and so I think that's what maybe would justify the overcompensation that we all would like to have seen in free agency heading into the draft. So having said all of that, even though people talk about this being a light draft or whatever they want to call it, I really don't care about that. You can look at 4 of these position groups and know there's going to be talent available at 45, at 80, and even extending it to the 4th round. That tight end group, who was it, Dev, you mentioned? Brugler, however you say his name?
Dane Brugler. Yeah.
I think tight end extends really far in this draft. So to me, addressing offensive line at 14 is the way to go, because then you can go wherever you want thereafter. The other option is, let's say we take an edge defender or a wide receiver at 14, and I'd be fine with that. If that happens, I would actually be fine with that because there's so much talent. Then what happens at 45 if Malachi Lawrence is there? Or 45 if, some other super talented guy, if Max is there, we would take him right at 45 if we had gone away from O-line at 14. So I don't know. A part of me, I don't want to say distrust this front office, but it's tough to let go of what Harbaugh did on the offensive line in the last 2 years. So there's a part of me that's, reactionary still and says maybe we should address O-line first. But, hey, we'll find out on draft night, right? If there's a super talented player there at 14, I can understand if we can't pass him up.
Yeah. The other option to me, Vega, or maybe we take somebody like Monroe Freeling, Spencer Fano would be a backup option, but just get that O-line out the way, like Coach is saying. So when it comes round 2, you don't have to pass on a guy you think is going to be a superstar at another position to take a guard. Just get it out of the way. There are guys that are worthy on the O-line of that 14th pick. Got a compliment from Coach from one of our family members, Zhang. She's a channel member, all that. I wonder if you're out in Utah tonight, Zhang. Hey, Jason, Dev, Coach DC, I have been a longtime follower of your channel. I watch your videos whenever I feel like geeking out on football film. Keep up the great work, guys. So, Coach, Zhang is a fan of yours and your work. And you're going to love Coach's draft site too, Zhang. Makes it real easy.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It's still sometimes, a little unusual or different for me to hear things like that. I do put a lot of time and effort into it, and obviously I'm not right all of the time, hopefully most of the time. So it's a lot of fun, and I stretched myself to the limit this year, trying to do 3 teams as much as possible, and then kept trying to push the pedal in the offseason with the website. And so, I appreciate, your shout out and your compliment.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Zhang. He's not good at taking compliments, but he appreciates them. Chris, gifting a membership. Thank you. The work wifey in the house. Coach DC, Chris is my work wifey, and she keeps everybody in line in the chat. So it's good to have. Good to have, right, Coach?
Been there, had a work wife at each of my last 2 jobs. I work for myself now, so don't have one of those.
Okay. Well, hey, you got to be your own. You got to be your own work wife, I guess, Coach. That means that's tough right there. Hey, Mikey. Mike has been a member for 1 month. Jason, Dev, plus Coach DC, loving the collabs lately. Thank you all for the content. Member for a month. Mike's been a member, though, and been around for a long time. Love you, Mike. Thanks so much. Got some chants for Vega. The chat is going crazy. TY jumped on, gifted a membership. TY, my guy. I know you recognize TY, Coach. Just a solid dude. And very insightful guy, TY right there.
It's always commenting in our Ravens Discord, and someone that I can rely, one of a number of people that I can rely on. Like if I don't access or check on the Discord for a whole day, I can log back in, and of course there'll be like 300 or 400 messages waiting for me. But I know it's someone that keeps it Ravens or football related, minimal BS at to any degree in there. It's always focused on what can the Ravens do to get better, and like you said, very astute and insightful. Someone who immediately identified in last year's draft, hey, why are we walking away from defensive tackle heavy group and not accessing that? Which is, to the point that we talked about earlier with edge, tight end, safety being so deep, we can rely on those things a little bit later in the draft, maybe if we address offensive line early.
Yeah. Historic D-line class last year caused me to study over 250 players just because I looked at 40 defensive linemen, which is so unusual. Usually you have to squint, and the Ravens waited until round 6 to take an ESP Bulls, which of course I liked. You got value in it. But, Coach and I have talked about the other opportunities that we had. Now, Coach Dwayne Ledford was at a pro day today, and not just any pro day. It was Penn State's pro day. And I got a little footage that I'm going to present. It's going to take me away. He was working with Vega Ioane at the pro day, actually holding the bags. I saw him do some outside zone stuff here. You don't get to see it as well here. But, yeah, you can see the big man work. I muted it. It's just a beautiful sight to watch this man move. And this is where I look at these feet, the feet on Vega. This is where I get really upset when people try to say he's too big, too slow to work outside zone. I mean, you watch the man line up on the wing, in the slot, block people in space. Look how tight his elbows are on a lot of these blocks. You see, it's just natural to him. It's a function of habit. It's what he looks like in the games, too. This isn't just looking good in practice and not being able to translate in the games. But you see the one clip of him driving. I'll point it out. I'll say when. It's Dwayne Ledford holding the bag. Right there. You can see the Ravens seat. So not only was Ledford at the pro day, but he was working the young man out. And I saw some various clips. But this is the beast that I'm looking at pick 14. A very smart player, very mean player. Hadn't given up a sack, by the way, guys, in the last 2 seasons. Now, of course, those are PFF stats. I'm not tied into PFF stats as the end-all, be-all, but they hadn't credited him with a sack for the last 2 seasons. Ultra professional pass pro. I would say not on the level of like a Quentin Nelson, but every bit as good as like a Tyler Booker from last year, if you want to just grade him as a true prospect. So some impressive stuff. And hey, our O-line coach is out there, fellas. Dev, what do you like about do you see everything I see on this with the foot movement, the chopping, the punch?
Impressive stuff. And you pointed that out to me before we hopped on, which I didn't have a chance to look at this, but his feet look good to me. You guys are more I think you have studied it more from a technique perspective than I have, but like the footwork, he looks nimble, he looks quick. It's interesting though, because this is flat out Ledford's there, worked him out, it's front and center. And in the past, when they have worked out players, I don't think it's always been a smokescreen. I think they worked out Bateman, if I'm not mistaken, with their coaches on site, either at the pro day, Minnesota's pro day. I think there was a story about that. Ortiz was there, and they worked him out, and then they loved him, and everybody knew it, and it just so happened to work out, right? But in this case, they're picking 14, not picking in the back half of the 20s. So I think that where I'm at with this is, first of all, yes, the pass pro, no question, and that's the value that he really delivers to me, because as much as the pass pro is the biggest gap that they have to close right now with the group they have, and just the problems they had last 2 seasons, really, when they've had to be in obvious and defined passing situations. They just can't, have reliably, that they can line up and block anybody one-on-one. So if he can do that at a high level, which he can, that's huge. And then I think all the other stuff will sort itself out, because you've really outlined this, Jason, is that he's a worker. He wants it. He's competitive. So I'm not worried about outside zone and his ability to climb and get to spots. I think he'll get there with Ledford coaching him up. So he fits a lot. He checks a lot of boxes for me.
So, Coach, I want to hit you with something else, a different angle for this. I learned a little bit about Polynesian culture this draft season. I'm trying to get more into the interviews and to just see some separators when guys are real close. I feel like I'm ahead of schedule. And when I listen to Vega talk, and when I listen to Maui Noah talk, who also should go pretty high in the first round, both Polynesian players, and they talk about, like, in their culture, they don't move away from their family. They live with their family until they get married. Vega, his family, and he's from Washington. Okay, so but the culture is still strong. He made the decision, kind of like he suggested that his parents wanted him to stay in Washington, play for the Huskies out there. But he decided it was best for him and his career to go all the way across the country to Penn State. Said his parents liked the place, but weren't too big on him going there by his own. So this man has some guts to do that. He takes, Jim 20 Eyes commented, he takes football very seriously. There's not a lot of, he's very polite and everything, but there's not a lot of smile and happy to be there. Like this seems like a very driven young man. And, I'm going to try to get more into that this year, Coach, when there are two players that are really, really close to just hear them speak and see what I can pick up. I mean, obviously they're all media trained.
Yeah.
So it's like, no, I'm not a psychiatrist, but you can kind of get into the head of a young man like this and be like, man, he took some chances, man. He went against the grain. And
I thought you were going to ask me about Polynesian culture. I was like, hey, dude, I grew up in Maryland just like you did. Like an hour away. So you're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, no. Have you been to Hawaii? I have not.
No. I do have some interesting thoughts about Ledford being involved with the drills and just a couple of observations from coaching, obviously not at that level. But if you show up to, a camp or you show up to a workout or anything off season, as a coach whether you're going to participate or not, right? Like, Ledford here on this part right here, he's dressed appropriately. Basically, my point is, he's not in jeans and flats, right? So he knew that he was going to participate to a certain degree. The worst is when you get asked to participate or lead something and you were not prepared to do so. Because for me personally, like I'm a guy, if I'm going to do something, I've got to have it written down. I need it written down for me to be able to follow. And I need my watch or my phone set with the alarms every 8 minutes or every 12 minutes. So we're rotating at the appointed time. You know what I mean? And we're getting
somebody put you on the spot one time, Coach.
Oh, it's happened before.
You weren't ready?
Yeah. And so from thereafter, I always showed up as if I was going to have to. But my point is, Ledford knew that he was going to participate to the extent that he did, number one. Number two, there's at least two players there that fit for us. I don't know that Sutton worked out. I have no idea. But Sutton, I know that he interviewed or talked to some media people because I saw a couple of pictures. And both of those players, Sutton at 45, if he's there. And how do you say it again? Ioane. Both of those guys fit us for the draft spots where we are, 14 and 45. So unique opportunity, I think, for the coaching staff. I'm sure Ledford wasn't the only guy there. As far as the film, I said to you guys before the show, I watched one game, maybe, let's see, today's Monday, so maybe Monday morning early, I watched one game of him from the end zone angle, and I was like, I've seen enough. I don't need to see anymore. Like, if he's our pick at 14, I'd be happy because, he can play.
Yeah, that's saying a lot. I just want to throw out another thing as I was thinking about the players that they've worked out and had hands-on involvement with. It was Bateman, it was Zay. They loved Zay, pre-draft process, Senior Bowl. They were there. The coaches were there. And then this is an example. I don't know if they love Vega, they worked him out, right? I mean, you could kind of infer that. To Coach's point, those are really good. That's really good context, Coach, because like that just tells me that again he wanted to get up and close, and I think that's part of the process. So that's a good sign. Again, they're picking 14, so there are some interesting possibilities where maybe it doesn't work because again. The Ravens putting their eyes on a player all of a sudden makes other teams want to jump ahead of them or try overdraft them. We've seen that with the Eagles. And last year with Booker being drafted, I do think there's a little bit of a like, hey, maybe we don't need to overthink this. Let's just draft a guard. Like it could be a team like Dallas somewhere in there, but there are some other, like I think the teams that have other needs though, I just think, like you said, Jason, this was a great point. Like the receivers, and the run that receivers that would happen enabled them to get Hamilton at 14. So that could happen again with these receivers because there's like two or three, right? My point being is I think there's a pretty clear shot at this if they want it, all things considered. So it's good to see.
Yeah. Coach, it's going to be an unpredictable top. I wish there were quarterbacks, more than one. I doubt Ty Simpson goes before 14. Stranger things have happened. But, you see the offensive lineman projected to go in the first round, Maui Noah. The G is an N, Coach. So it's like Tua Tagovailoa there.
Mhm.
So it's Noah. You got Freeling from Georgia, left tackle, Fano, Proctor, and Fano's teammate Caleb Lumo, all expected to go. When I watch Victor Vega Ioane, I just am kind of in love. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting first round. Can't wait to see it. But we had to cover Vega. So, quick question for you guys: we got to see yet another video from Nnamdi Madubuike working out. He's posting these things to social media. They look pretty serious. He's slamming the medicine ball down. Now he's pulling chains. Like he looks like he's working out and like almost sending a message. But you know how I get with this stuff, guys. Like I kind of protect myself from disappointment and pain. I guess it's supposedly that's a symptom of anxiety, is to not get too hopeful of stuff. So like for me, I'm glad to see it. I'm still just like, look, don't pay any attention to it. Don't buy into the hype. So I wanted to see how hype you guys were. If you changed your mind as you're thinking, Nnamdi's coming back, man, Madubuike's coming back, because Dev, it changes things. I don't have to tell anybody. Having Nnamdi back versus Nnamdi having to retire and give up football is a night and day difference to this pass rush, especially the pass rush, with the run defense too.
Yeah.
Dev, start with you. Does this get you a little more hopeful and hype? And then also, I've said this to Coach, and Coach agrees. I don't think we're going to find out Nnamdi's status until after the draft, because we're not going to, probably no reason to show our hands to another team about what we need or don't need.
That's a really good point, actually, because it would factor in, right? Because there's despite the offense, we discussed the offensive players at 14. There are viable defensive linemen, even if they traded down, right? And then so that it would affect their strategy and pretty much showing their hand. So I can understand them protecting that. But I think where I'm at, there's two things. One, I think it's more so looking at the roster and looking at the cap, and the fact that they spent $100 million on Hendrickson, and they were all willing to do that with Crosby and put the resources in. I don't think you do that if you know you're going to absorb a massive cap hit from Madubuike because he's going to retire. That's been covered, right? That they can't. I mean, there's a settlement. I guess he can return some of that money or something like that. They can work through that. I know Brian McFarland from our group, from our side, from Russell Street, has covered it and the different things that could happen. But no matter what, it's pretty ugly. If you go down that road, it impacts your roster, and projecting it for 2027, 2028, and so forth. His contract's a problem. So nothing has happened on that front. And then you look at the signings. I just think to me, that's a bit of a tell that there's some optimism. Now, I do agree with coaches, like, this is such a tricky thing that you can't really fully know until we get to the summer. And I don't know what Coach, I'm curious your opinion of these workouts, because I got fired up too. And then I had to stop myself and say, but it's a medicine ball. So like, I don't know. I didn't play football. So like when you're working out and you're throwing that around, does that really tell the full story? It's different than lining up and on top, on a sled and then taking it a step further and you're hitting a guy. It's like, I don't know. I kind of tempered my enthusiasm a little bit too with these workouts. So I'm curious your take on that.
I mean, first of all, I hope Madubuike gets every cent that he possibly can, regardless of how it turns out, like seeing his progression. As far as the excitement level that Jason kind of talked about, I'm absolutely excited and hopeful that he's going to be a full go. Having said that, in the draft, I would still want us to address defensive tackle. I am really thankful that we brought back Jenkins. I thought he played well last year for what the expectation level would be. And Travis Jones, we know who he is. We need to get him off the field some, and we need to have him on the field with someone like Madubuike. I still wouldn't have a problem if we went D tackle somewhere in this draft, particularly with how many picks we have. The problem is we're a year behind if we're going into the 4th and the 5th looking at defensive tackle. We all know that. We kind of talked about it earlier. As far as the workouts, I've seen minimal pictures of it. I mean, I really rely on people in the Discord, because I'm so busy in my profession, what I do, that being able to pick up the Discord and scroll back a little bit and see pictures of social media posts or whatever, to me, it just looked like preliminary workouts. This is what it looked like to me. Something of a guy amping up to begin a training program. I mean, the best people that I was ever around, you're building power, strength, and bulk in the cold weather months, December to February. And then you're starting to transition into agility, movement, and speed as the weather, gets better and you're able to get outside and actually do those things more. So to me, it just looked like transitioning from heavy weight training in the winter was what we would expect. But who knows the extent of the injury and what it did or did not allow him to do as far as lifting certain weights, whether it's squats, bench press, actual neck exercises, if people still do those. But I'm excited, hopeful. Number one, we definitely need him to reach our potential on defense. You subtract him from that list that Jason's got on the screen there, and things look drastically different, in my opinion.
And I mean, we're overrun with nose tackles. And I know Jim has said this to me before, that he'd like to see Travis, do more 3-tech work. And Jim, I think Travis got that opportunity plenty last year. I don't know if Coach saw the same thing in Dev, but Jenkins and Jones were on the field a lot, and Jenkins was the 0 and 1 almost every time, to where Travis Jones was the 3. Like, I'm looking at it, we attended Okoye, we got John Jenkins, we got Travis Jones. Those are your 3 guys. All 3 of those guys are nose tackles. When you go to the defensive tackle room, if Madubuike is not back, you got Broderick Washington, who might not make the team. You save $4 million if you cut him, and Aeneas Peebles. So we need, whether you like Travis Jones at 3-tech or not, we need another 3-tech. And what do you have to do in this draft to get a 3-tech? You damn well better take them within the first 2 or 3 rounds. Even in a good defensive tackle draft, Dev. You're not picking up a defensive tackle in the 5th, 6th round who's great against the run and can rush the passer. Those guys go quick.
Yeah, that's just it. Absolutely. So you have to take them early, regardless of and especially given the depth of some of the other positions. This is between edge and tight end. We talked about that. Like, if you could take the defensive tackle in round 2, I think that's not a bad spot, right? Just because you have to, given the talent, given the demands, and also the lack of that level of depth as it was last year. And I think that will also tell us a lot draft day, what they do. You would think, logically.
Right.
I'll say this about Washington, though. It's interesting. Like, the more we could keep moving, they don't make that move. I think it just tells me that this brand new staff, they may just view Broderick Washington differently. So that's another thing to think about. Even though his play did go down, in terms of the production wasn't there, besides the injuries. But I wonder if that's something that Coach Weaver would want to reignite, because he did get more out of Broderick Washington. No matter what, though, the difference between, could you imagine Madubuike and Hendrickson, from last year, just the lift? It's dramatic. It's like they would all, there's upside for them to go from bottom of the league pass rush to top 5, top 10. I don't even think I'm exaggerating, just with those 2 guys and the impact they can make across the entire group as is, let alone you add 1 or 2 more guys from the draft.
I'll add another name, Jesse Minter.
That too.
This cage rush BS that we were doing with finesse rushers, not letting our guys get after it and being obsessed even against Joe Flacco in week 2. Oh, we got to keep Flacco in the pocket. Don't burn the edge. It would just drove me nuts. So, Madubuike, Trey Hendrickson, Jesse Minter, we can be right back in the top 5 in sacks again, for sure, especially if you got Lamar Jackson and the offense is right, giving you those chances to rush the passer. So our last topic before we show off some draft stuff is we could use some weapons on this team, guys. I'm looking. We need another tight end or 2, probably 2. Zay's going into a contract year. Bateman, people are all over the place on how much they trust him. Tez Walker is your wide receiver 3 right now. We ran a lot of 12 personnel, a lot of Isaiah Likely on the field with Andrews last year. And if it wasn't those two, Kolar was involved. David Njoku visits the Ravens. Now, he did leave, I believe, guys. Didn't have a contract, so it's not like he came to Baltimore and signed the same day. But Dev, or Coach, I'm going to start with you because Dev just spoke. What's your opinion of David Njoku? If we could sign him on this team, is he the type of tight end that you think we need? What do you think about his game overall? Just go ahead and, how would you feel if we signed David Njoku to a contract that you approved of?
I mean, I would be happy because it's a legitimate NFL talent, a guy who is really good with the ball in his hands. What I saw in Cleveland was I felt like he was A+ after getting the ball in his hands. I cannot say that I saw an A-level route runner as a tight end. I cannot say that. I saw a guy who worked sometimes through manufactured target screens or the chip stuff. I still remember, I think maybe it was 2023 that when Deshaun Watson played that ridiculous second half, there was like a 3rd and 11, something like that. He chips, catches it underneath, and all of our linebacker and safety drops were back, at the line to gain. And Njoku gets to it, or maybe he created a 4th and 1. And I just feel like he's a little bit of positional overlap with Mark Andrews, except he's, to me, not as good of a route runner there. However, having said that, if we signed him, I'd be very happy because I look at this draft, and even though I like some of the talent that would be there that fits with where we may select them, guys like Raridan, Royer, Max Clare, Jason, I really like Josh Clavis, even Lake McCree. Njoku clears all of those guys, in my opinion, as a day one ready football player at tight end. So if we had him and Andrews and Smythe, who obviously was in this offense last year, I think that's a really good group, and I got no complaints. I will say, do not expect Njoku to come in here and be a consistent or effective blocker at the point of attack. That's the way that I will phrase it right now for you guys. Okay. I don't want to damper the excitement because I would be happy if he signed, and I think he's a talented player, and we could certainly use some talent at that tight end position. There is talent in the draft, but other than Sadiq and Stowers, Trigg and Joe Lee are, super, gifted as well. And Njoku brings a lot, and I could see him scoring 6 or 8 touchdowns in this offense next year.
Dev, I love Coach's point of Njoku with the ball in his hands. Sorry about that. I just wanted to get the graphics right. Njoku with the ball in his hands. Like every time we play the Browns, and I'm looking at, there have been times where I'm like, man, maybe we should keep Hamilton more at strong safety this game. To man up on Njoku when we need it, smother him, tackle him when he gets the ball. Coach is talking about those chip and release that Njoku is famous for. Just chip on the tackle, slow him down, knock him to the inside. Nice little release out into the flat, get the ball, and good luck bringing David Njoku down. It's just, that's what he does. I think that he had drop issues during his career at some point. I'm not an Njoku expert, not the cleanest route runner, as Coach said, but you get the ball in his hands, depending on his contract. He's not going to break the bank. He's probably not going to surpass Mark as like their go-to receiving tight end. So, hey, Njoku gets the ball. He gets 3 targets this game. He gets 4 targets that game. Maybe he has a game where he gets 5. Maybe he has a game where he gets only 2. But you get on the ball in that area, that kind of volume, and let him get you some tough yards, extension of the running game. And maybe he's a good bailout player because I haven't really seen him play with like a Lamar Jackson type, hey, maybe he can find space and be an outlet. So I like him. I like the player. I like the toughness. And that game that Coach is talking about from 2023, I want to say that was the fire pit game where he burnt the heck out of himself and came back and had a really good game against the Ravens like 2 days later.
Yeah, I think that's right. But that's a good example of his toughness. And you know what I also think, just something else that came up is I do think he can also win on 50-50 balls down the field. And he can get in deep seam routes. He's beaten the Ravens on just jump balls, right? One-on-ones. So he can give you that. He can climb the ladder. He's a big target. That takes a little bit off of some of the things Likely would be able to do. As to your point, Jason, that's something he and Lamar had tremendous chemistry on. and I like the way that he can work with Mark, because as Andrews is slowed down, I think, yeah, to coach nailed it. And Njoku's not a great route runner. He's not a technical guy. Wasn't out of college either. Like, he was a raw prospect, physical dimensions, raw capability, like raw skills, right? All of it was like great speed, kind of size, that type of thing. He was a raw prospect. So that's kind of carried over. But with Andrews, you do have the guy that can sit down and zones, and he can find the soft spots, and he's got good feel. I think they can really work well together. And then having Smythe, he is the guy that can help you with the inline blocking, and he can move and do the things you need from a combination standpoint between H-back and inline and slot and block. So you all of a sudden have three people that can work well together. And I think there's still room. You have to draft a tight end no matter what. Like, so 4th, 5th round, still go get any of those guys because there's so much depth. But this gives you protection and depth. And Njoku can, to your point, he can fit in pretty well. You need him to catch a couple passes or 5 passes. I think each game he could break out. He's capable.
Right. That's a great point.
So guys, I want to bring up this tight end group. My started prospect, Justin Jolie from NC State. Love him. Love Michael Trigg. I think that he's going to go day 2 as well. But I have to be honest with everybody here. Like, I'm getting more suggestions from tight ends. I studied 2 more today. The kid from Wyoming, Gillenborg, I believe is his name. Yeah. Dallin Bentley is on my list. Mm-hmm. Jay-Z sent me somebody. Jay-Z, if you're in here, I looked him up too. His name's over there on the piece of paper. There are guys that I've left off this list. And the tough part is when I only have 175 draft slots, and I like the way it's presented. As you guys can tell, there's no more room.
That's
like,
awesome,
if you
man.
want me to read the names.
There's no more room.
There's no more room. Like,
stop, dude, stop. He's already dead.
So if he's already dead, right? But Coach, how the hell am I going to leave some of these tight ends off, and then we're going to take one in the 5th round, and you're going to be like, you didn't have this guy. So, like, this is my dilemma now with this class, Coach.
That's what Bruler was saying.
It reminds me a little bit of running back in a typical year. I know that this is not a typical year for running back, whereby Isaiah Pacheco. I know that things, in the last couple of years haven't been as productive, but he's 7th round pick.
7th round.
Yeah, some of these running backs in a typical year, round 5, 6 guys, they end up with 50, 60 carries in a season or more at times, and they have an impact.
Heath Mitchell undrafted.
Yeah,
like we've had those types of drafts.
Yeah. Reminds me of a typical running back class, and that you're going to get 5th, 6th round guys playing a lot of snaps and having an impact either as a blocker, or catching passes. I like Josh Cuevas a lot. I don't have a problem with where you have him rated at all. But I look at a guy like Cuevas and I'm like, okay, where do you have him ranked? What do you have him? 9, 10? That guy has lined up at X in the SEC and won against outside corners. And I'm not using that as evidence to say, oh, he should be your 6th guy. I'm saying that's the depth that there is at tight end. That a guy that's ranked that far, I think I have him as my 7th or 8th guy, somewhere in that range. There's a lot of talent at tight end. Gillenborg, the guy from Wyoming, if I'm saying his last name right, that's the guy that I think you and I texted about. He makes plays with the ball in his hand. Had a game-winning touchdown catch this year with like 30 seconds left in the 4th quarter. There's a lot of talent at tight end. I wouldn't have a problem, to Dev's point, if we signed Njoku and we drafted one of these guys. A Cuevas to me would be my personal favorite, but Raritan is a guy that really stands out for me.
Notre Dame guy, another big 250.
Yep, and his production, people would say, oh, he only had a certain amount of catches his last 2 years. That guy tore his ACL as a senior in high school playing basketball. Tore his ACL again in the fall of his freshman year, or the first year that he began to play at Notre Dame. Basically missed 2+ years. And recovered from it and still playing well. I know the 2 ACLs is a red flag for some people. My point is Eli Raritan is a whole lot more talented and capable than the production illustrates overall for his career. There's a lot of talent at tight end. That would give us 4 guys, and one of them, Smythe, is your H-back / fullback who already knows the offense, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. They have that flexibility. They can just slide in Smythe.
And Dev, I'm going to set you up with this. Oscar Delp had his pro day, and
that's one of my guys.
He ran into 4.4s. I got this dude in the red. Like, I'm going to have to
Delphin,
make some adjustments. to
Delphin
this tight
Rauscher,
end.
my two. You have them back to back.
Yeah.
And I talked. I love Roush's potential too because of some of the stuff Coach you just outlined. But Roush, I might be mispronouncing his last name, but
Yeah, you
6'7", I think. He
Yeah.
gives me Jesse James. Was it Jesse James with the Steelers? He gives me those vibes, like that size, but he's got potential to block. I know he's got short arms.
Yeah.
But I don't worry as much about that at a position at like tight end because you can hide that. You can get him out space, you can get him on angles, and so I really do like his game. And if you, to your point, Delp Roush, take him in fourth, maybe not fifth, but like fourth round kind of territory. I'm good with that. If let's say hypothetically you hit on. I mean, this is an interesting scenario, right? Because you could get 2 offensive linemen in your first 3 picks, and then you're probably looking at defense in round 2. You might not hit on receiver. You have to make some decisions, but there's so much depth at tight end that you could feasibly even wait another round later, and still get a quality tight end. So, just really excited about this group. And again, you could still sign. I don't think this is I think the point is initially I kind of had thought they really need to draft 2 tight ends, because I know that we talked about that on previous shows, Jason. But now I like this idea of bringing an Njoku, giving some stability to the room, give another professional receiver, right, and then still come back and get your guy a tight end with upside.
Yeah. Yeah, there's different ways to slice it. And this is, getting back to Heather's original super chat from earlier, this is why I want to address the O-line, man. Like, it just hit it hard because I don't want it to be round 3 and, we need to take a guard, or we're obviously going to have to take a center in this draft. There are a lot of good centers. Round 3 is probably. But you get to a area in the draft, Dev, where we see the names of the tight ends, we see the tape, but we don't know the people. And there's a guy that's like, look, man, this guy is going to keep getting better and better. He's got like 10 pounds he could put on a muscle. He's worked, we've talked to his coaches about how well he's worked at his blocking. It matters to him. And ends up being one guy that sticks out, like where we see a cluster of guys be like, well, we could wait till next round. And the Ravens are like, look, we want to get this tight end now. And maybe we'll take a shot on a safety later or something like that, when you're really mashing the positions together. So this is why I'm big on filling as much as we can in free agency. It's why I like the David Njoku idea. Give you a veteran presence in there. It's why I wanted us to sign a veteran center. Linderbaum obviously went for crazy money, but to trade for an Eric McCoy or do what we had to do to get a starting center in here so we could go in this draft, clean. And Dev, just to give you some numbers, I've released a video comparing this draft to last year's draft. Last year, in the dark green area, you see there's a key to the draft board, so you can go ahead and link that. It's in the description of the video. But last year, there were only 2 players with true first-round grades. That was Abdul Carter, their edge rusher, and Travis Hunter. This year, I have 6. Maui Noah is close, but not a true first-round grade. Those are guys who would go in the first round in any draft, and if you combine the last 2 or 3 drafts, they'd still comfortably be in the first round. The next tier is that light green. Those are players expected to go in the first round. So obviously, Dylan Thieneman and McNeil Warren are not a need for us. So they're going to be high on other teams' board. The Ravens already have Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Jalen Hawkins. So I faded the safeties down in that first round range, which is why it's a Ravens-centric draft board. Compared to last year, that second round grade, that's in the yellow. Last year I had 51 guys that I would consider second round grade. Those are guys that can help you right away and guys who project to be plus starters. Last year, 51 of those guys. This year, 49. So that's what that number is. But what I was talking to Coach, and Coach is back with us now. Thanks for the text, Coach. Sorry about that. I was waxing. But last year, that orange and above, there were 113 players. I've added 2 more. since Monday, there are 126 players in this draft who are, I would say, those are your draft targets. Like, we can list as many players as we want, but in the end, you want to target those 126 players. Those are guys that I think will have a role in some type of defense or offense package that you play. You're going to get some starters out of there depending on their position, or a heavy rotational player. So this draft is, I would say, a good half round deeper than last year when you get down to, okay, who are the true players in this draft? Who are we really targeting?
And that's really what needs to be talked about, I think, too, whether it's people like us or national commentators, analysts, whatever you want to call it. Like, you've got Joseph's is at 110 from the Tennessee edge. The guy's got some pass rush juice with him, maybe some inconsistencies.
He's actually at 85.
Okay, so he's 85. Either way, you're talking about pretty far down there. You've got a quality football player with some known strengths, as well as, a little bit further down that list, a couple of the guards I have different opinions about than maybe other people, but I really like Stooks from Arizona.
Yeah.
Got a chance to watch 2 games film of him and was like, okay, I see it. I know why 3 different people recommended me or recommended that I watch his film, and I watched 2 games. I was like, okay, I really get it. Another one, Trotter, you have down there at 101, Josiah Trotter. Of course, his dad played in the NFL in Philly.
Okay.
Good football player, smart, very aggressive against the run. There's a lot of good depth in this draft, some really good football players and talent. And I just wholeheartedly reject people saying this is a light draft, this is one to skip. Like, for example, the Seahawks, I believe, have 5 picks in this draft. And people are saying that the Seahawks are signaling to everyone, we don't think there's any talent to grab in this draft. No, they have their roster filled out, and they're happy with their roster, as well they should be. They just won a Super Bowl. So I'm totally adamant, I'm unwilling to accept people who say this draft is just not deep. And you even mentioned it. You said that you have it going a little deeper further than last year's group, right?
I think last year when you got into the undrafted range, it was a little deeper. We talked about those defensive tackles from last year earlier that just kept going and going and going. So I had to study more players last year. I would say more players last year were worthy of being brought into camp, to give a look-see here or there. But the 126 guys that I'm targeting in this draft is, again, that's a solid like half round more than I had last year. This year I'm cutting off people from that range, just trying to be stubborn and not make it too big. Whereas last year I felt like getting to 113 was a stretch. So last year was kind of like weaker in the middle, but a longer draft. This draft, I think, is really strong between rounds 2 and 4. I'd say the first round is a little bit weaker. Obviously, you don't have that star-studded lineups of Jamar Chases and, Myles Garrett's and, Abdul Carter's or whatever, all up at the top receivers. End of the first round to into the second round looks pretty darn good to me, all the way through round 4, I would say. I don't know if you get that impression too, Coach, with all the write-ups. I want to bring up your, or should I say our, man? I collaborated on it.
You should.
Okay.
That's right. You sent me a ton of stuff, and so did multiple other guys. So yeah, absolutely. I try not to refer to it as mine because, first of all, I didn't do the coding or the background work on it. I was being told what to do in many cases by Jen. So, she's asked me to stop thanking her. I won't, I'm extremely thankful and want to remain grateful. And I think this is a collaborative project, which is the reason why, a bunch of us talked about putting this page on here and ensuring that maybe the font is a little bit too small there. Sorry. Ensuring that all of the people who did contribute, were recognized. And, in some cases, people didn't like who they were lined up with. I was like, hey, I got to do this for the length of, like a couple of fans of opposite teams were like, why am I lined up with a guy from another fan base? It was to match up, the length of the information with, the appropriate length on the other side. So just happy to do it. None of us are making any revenue off of it. That's not the point. We're going to do it again. I mean, I think Jake Hallett and I said that we're going to start May 1st. We're going to start on the 2027 version.
Oh, wow.
This is a good looking site, by the way. Coach.
Isn't it pro? Really pro.
Yeah, this is slick. I like it.
And
I like how you broke. Yeah, this is great. Getting nerding out on my from a digital marketing perspective, the carousel you got here and the
Yeah,
top carousel.
yeah,
It
his
looks
girl
slick.
Jen did some work, and I just want to plug the
Yeah.
name.
sick.
Draft signal.pro
Yeah.
is the name of the website, and that is pinned. It should be in the description of this video. So draft signal.pro, and you can see I submitted some write-ups. My buddy Edgar Allen, who was one of the people who inspired me to do YouTube.
Yep.
Coach Evans, Sip to Tally, another guy. I watched him in Engraven. That's
Chris
what inspired
Aguilera.
me. Chris Aguilera, that is
Yep.
my guy. That's Dev's guy actually too.
Yep.
He's been on the program. Hey, we were all on together during the bye week. So I know Dev, Dev and I know Chris. But
Oh, yeah.
some
Long
great
time.
contributors. And then Coach,
Yep.
of course, has got Will Rock. I believe he works in Detroit radio, right?
He's a credentialed NFL writer. So he gets to go to games. He actually went to the combine. Dan Viennes, who's a Seahawks podcaster. Adam Emmett, who I'll meet with on my channel tomorrow night. He did all the QB evaluations. I just haven't.
Nice.
I'll be honest with you. I just haven't got to the quarterback evaluations. I could have if I had the motivation to do so.
Yeah.
I just don't. I just
neither.
don't. And we've got Lamar Jackson. That could be the reason why. I didn't know this was called. Dev, you said carousel.
Yeah, it's a carousel effect. Like slide, you can slide through just what we're looking at here. These little cards.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. This is very cool and very user friendly. And then, okay, I see you guys have those.
She put so many.
Drops. This is really cool.
What do you call it? I haven't played video games for a while. What do you call it where you discover something in a video game that you weren't?
A cookie. I knew this.
Okay. One. Yeah, something like that. She put so many cool little things in there. Like, I love that you can obviously filter by position, and then you can grab multiple positions at the same time. Oh, my team is only looking at inside linebacker, nose tackles, and receivers. You can go grab this group that we thought was appropriate to cover to highlight. What I really like is how you can go to the player search function and search for a team, a college, and it gives you all the players from Alabama that we've highlighted. I think I would like for us to get to more players next year, to be honest with you.
Easter egg. It is an Easter egg.
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
I done gave the wrong damn thing. I'm sorry about that.
I'm out of the video game business for about 4.5, 5 years, so I have no idea. He said cookie. But I think what we really love is in this day and age, so many people only want to surround themselves around people who think the same exact things that they do. I intentionally was looking for opportunities to put one evaluation from a person next to another one who may or may not have the same thing to say, and really, not care who those people were, as long as they were willing to submit me stuff that A, didn't include curse words, and B, wasn't derogatory in nature. A couple of people I hooked up with on Twitter saw the site and messaged me and said, "Hey, I wish I had taken you up on the offer." I think I asked 19 people for evaluations, and I think 12 or 13 people said yes. We really love being able to provide the film at the bottom, which people can click on. I'm not going to do that here for obvious reason. And I think that just adds some flavor to it. Jen did spectacular work on it, through no benefit of her own financially or for anyone else that's put this together. But we love it. And what I look forward to is creating next year's version and seeing who's willing to help. My suspicion is there'll probably be more people who say, "I'd like to help," but we would like to have as many people involved as possible, to the point that I can actually keep up with communicating with them. It was difficult this year to, all the texting and stuff.
It's worked out beautiful. I knew you'd do a good job. That's why I agreed to do it. And again, I'm so protective over my work, Dev, with the draft. Other stuff I don't care about, but I pour my heart and soul into the draft and my big board, and I'm so happy with the way it looks. And what I'm going to be doing is just providing Coach with some more write-ups. There's my write-up on Eli Stowers, the games I watched, and I try to give some examples and from the games I watched and all that. But I just
had a chance to do writing, to write it out, the actual evaluations and the profiles. Have you done that? in other
Yes.
sites?
Not in other sites, not since I was training down in DC, which was
wow.
like
Okay.
6 weeks. Is usually what
Yeah.
I'll do, Dev, is I'll write notes to myself. And I was explaining to Coach DC the other night that we're doing write-ups like you see here, I think help me make me better through the process.
Mhm.
So where like, if you write a note to yourself, you know what you mean. If somebody else came and picked up the note that you wrote, they wouldn't understand what the heck you were talking about. So I had to choose my adjectives carefully. I had to give
Yeah.
examples. I had to do a little bit more than I usually do, and I think it made my evaluations better. So, like I'm going to be going over and Coach, I think identified the linebacker position. I'm going to beef up the notes on that and just try to help give Coach the most complete site out there. So not only Ravens fans, but fans of any team can go and see what we have to say. But of course, I'm going at a Raven centric angle on that.
Yeah.
So I had to give, man, I just wanted to have Coach on tonight. He just launched this thing. I'm proud to be a part of it.
We
just
launched
this thing. Proud to be a part of it. Proud of all the work that Jen and Jake and everybody else did behind the scenes. And, of course, people I respect like Chris and Coach Evans and EA, man. So, yeah, I wanted to show it on my stream. Not that you don't have enough viewers over on your stream, Coach, but I wanted to bring it up here with you.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you.
Congrats to both of you. Congrats on the endeavor, because it is a lot.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it comes from a ridiculous Google sheet that I will not show, but it emanates from there, and the entry of it is intricate and precise, and then excuse me, the gathering of the headshots of the players, the color scheme for each individual player. I don't know this to be true, but for Max, the coloring of the button lines up with the color scheme for his team.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
It's all different for each different player. And Jen was responsible for that. Occasionally I helped with maybe 2% of that. But, I just it's been a blessing. It's been a whole lot of fun to be involved in. We've discussed, at some point in the future, even turning it into an app. And I know those things are a lengthy process, and some people don't know what it entails and how long it can take to actually get stuff on the App Store. I have a little bit of knowledge of that. So, it's something that we're proud of, and we're just glad that people hopefully access it. Well, they are. We've got the Google Analytics that give us information and where people are logging on from. Funny story. I sent it to my brother who used to help. I know where he lives. And so I said, hey, man, have you checked out the site? He said, I'm on there right now. And I said, well, I'm looking at the Google Analytics, and I don't see a blue dot.
I don't see you on there.
Are you on incognito? And he said, what's incognito? I said, why don't you go ahead and get on the site? And while we're texting, I saw the blue dot pop up in his location.
There he was, right.
A lot of fun.
Oh,
and,
man.
Jason, EA, Coach Evans, Chris Aguilera. I'm glad for everyone to be involved. Adam Emmerich, Omari Brown, so many of Dan Viennes, Will Rock, so many other guys. But I'm really just thankful that Ravens content creators, when I did ask them, by and large said yes, and then sent me so much stuff I almost didn't know what to do with it. So, thank you guys. In particular, Jason, you sent me a ton of stuff.
Oh, man, my pleasure. My pleasure. So, yeah, that was the big news from this week. My big board, I wanted to make sure I had Coach on. He was kind enough to join us to kind of show off the site a little bit. So, yeah, I just put the link to both the big board and Coach's or our draftsignal.pro website into the chat so you can access that. And there is what is it? Like, it's all, you have to click all chat on the chat. You guys know what I'm talking about. But some people, it'll just show half of the chat. When you open up the chat the next day, you have to actually select, and I don't see the option for me now, but it's like show all chat. So make sure you do that. And yeah, it's an Easter egg. It's not a cookie. I messed that up. What is a cookie? A cookie is cookies is what you have to accept cookies when you go on a website. That's what I was thinking. That's how dumb I am, bro. My goodness.
Yeah, but you know what? I didn't step in and correct you, so I'm guilty too. And I think I just went with it because I couldn't think either. So
I sounded confident as hell in it. You know what I mean? So
I feel embarrassed because I was a big time gamer for years with a pretty big group that spent a lot of time playing games, and so for me not to be able to think of it, It was pretty ridiculous. But thanks for letting me show off the site. It was a heck of a lot of fun, and it makes we tried to make the draft more accessible to people on their phone. That was the idea, because we know that most people are on their phone
Right.
accessing stuff.
I still got to apologize for Fahizi. He was in the chat. He was telling me it was an Easter egg, and I'm sitting here saying it's So thank you so much, Coach, for coming. Dev and I will be digging into draft content. If you hear you want to support the channel, just subscribe. That's all really all you can do. Help us get to 5,000 so more people can see it. And then, obviously visit the site draftsignal.pro. Keep wanting to say Draft Pro, Coach. That's the one thing. Draftsignal.pro. Check out my big board, and the positional rankings will be updated. And, I just wanted to say thank you so much to my football family. I love my football family. Thanks for all the support tonight. And with that, Dev, Coach, take us on out and say goodnight and thank you to the people. Dev, you want to go first?
Yeah, I have a great one, and we gotten started with the best time of the year. We talked about this best time of the offseason. Player evaluations, just really appreciate all the work both of you do for that, by the way. And I just think I'm echoing what a lot of people say. For me, it's been years since I've gotten to that level of detail, breaking down players, college prospects. I think I used to have like 15 to 20, not 175 on a big board. Right. So I do very much appreciate that you supply me with the knowledge I attain from you guys, and I compile it all. And we have a lot of people in this community. We touched on that do put a lot of time into it, and I know it helps me to frame, how I can analyze the picks later as they happen and kind of evaluate the rosters. So just wanted to say that, and Coach, always pleasure to talk to you, get your perspective.
Thanks. If we were a number line on a number line as far as how many prospects we evaluate and the depth to which we go, Jason would be way over here. You and I would be closer together over here. I think I got to like 45 or 48. And part of that was the communication with other people, the organization of trying to get things collected. But I will say this. This could partially be because geographically, I'm an hour from Baltimore. I feel like the Ravens content creator community is more tight knit than others. And I feel like I can provide some personal experience as far as the Lions fan base and the Seahawks fan bases. I have had experience and gone on many shows there, and they've all been positive experiences. Don't get me wrong. But what I have not witnessed is positive things being said between those people in each fan base. And in fact, sometimes it was the other side of that coin. That's all I'll say. In the Ravens fan base, I don't get any of that. I get me personally, nor do I ever overhear it from one person to another. It's all positive about contributions and the network of people that do stuff that I think really makes being a Ravens fan even more fun, because there's, Cole Jackson, EA, Jason, myself, Coach Evans, Sip the Tally. I mean, really the OGs are EA and Coach Evans. I think they were the first two guys, but I could be wrong. And Ken as well. There's just so much content out there for Ravens fans to consume. And I feel like everybody is very genial and helpful in situations like this. And I can attest to that personally with the website that we all created and so many people who had a hand in it.
Oh yeah. It goes in line with my football's family, man. It's not competitive to me. I learned something from everybody, and everybody's got a different perspective. Sometimes egos can get involved. I wouldn't say I'm batting 1,000 within the Ravens community, but batting pretty darn high, with people who are just respect you and, want to hear from you. Yeah. So yeah, it's not like that in other fan bases I've heard. For real. They get real competitive and condescending to each other. So I've seen a little bit of it, not to Coach's level, but so thank you to my football family. Love my football family. Guys, say goodnight to the people now.
Have a good one. Have a good night. Get your rest for the draft coming up in a month.
That's right.
Rest. What's that? I don't know what that is.
That's a good for you. No, I do. I hope you guys starting again in May. That's killer.
I just want to get We just want to get the structure, started so we can start to fill in,
Understood.
things a little slower. This has been a sprint. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'd like a slow walk. So thank you guys
That's
for
fair.
tuning in. The live streams are always fun. I don't do them on my channel, but it's always fun to come on here. I try to do this more often if possible.
Appreciate you. We'll have you back, Coach. All right, guys. Have a good night.